You can learn a lot about a place by watching how a dog reacts to it. And Echo, a retired canine with a nose for trouble and a heart as loyal as the sky is wide, refused to step one paw into the new house. Tyler Briggs stood at the edge of the gravel driveway, scratching the back of his neck as the afternoon sun blazed down on the overgrown grass and boarded windows. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a fixer-upper in the middle of nowhere. Peace and quiet. Just him and Echo. But Echo had planted himself on the front porch like he was guarding a tomb. Ears rigid, eyes locked on the old farmhouse like it might bite back. That was the first sign. The second came when Echo growled low, the kind of growl Tyler hadn't heard since their last raid back in Houston. And that's when Tyler realized this house wasn't empty. Not really. Tyler had bought the property online, sight unseen, after quitting the police force. He was 33, burnt out, and tired of noise. The house, listed as an elegant southern estate with historical charm, had once belonged to a family that vanished, or so the real estate agent vaguely hinted before quickly changing the subject. To Tyler, it was just cheap and quiet, and Echo needed space to roam after 3 years chasing down drug dealers and missing persons. But by the time the U-Haul rolled away and Echo still hadn't left the porch, Tyler was starting to think he might have made a mistake. He unpacked the last box, wiped the sweat off his brow, and whistled. "Come on, bud. Let's check it out." Echo didn't move. Instead, the shepherd sniffed the floorboards near the entryway, pawed twice at the same spot, then let out a short, sharp bark. Tyler blinked. "You smell something." Echo barked again, not loud, but urgent. Inside, the air was stale and too still. No cobwebs, no critters, just dust and silence. The living room had nothing but a sagging armchair and yellowing wallpaper. The kitchen looked like it hadn't seen a meal since the Clinton administration. But the floorboards, they were too clean, too swept, too careful. Echo finally stepped inside, one slow paw at a time. Then he turned left, walked down the narrow hallway, and stopped outside a closed door. His tail went rigid. Tyler stepped up behind him, hand hovering near the old Glock he hadn't unpacked yet. "Echo?" The dog pressed his nose to the floor, then scratched once, twice, 3 times. He whined, a soft, heartbreaking sound like he was calling for something lost. That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. Not from the heat, not from the cicadas, but from the sound of Echo pacing the hall. At 3:14 a.m., the dog started scratching again. Same spot. Tyler grabbed a flashlight and followed him, barefoot down the hardwood floor. Echo sat next to the wall now, not moving, not barking, just staring. Tyler ran the beam of light along the baseboard and saw something strange. The paint was newer there, a little brighter, less dust. And one plank, just one, didn't sit flush. He knelt down, tapped it with his knuckle. Hollow. He stood, went to the shed, came back with a crowbar. What he pried open next wasn't a crawl space. It was a hole, about 3 feet deep, just enough room to hide something, or someone. And down there, curled like a dying animal, was a boy. Before we go any further, do us a favor. If you believe animals like Echo are heroes too, hit that subscribe button to support the Heroes for Animals YouTube channel. These stories deserve to be heard, and you never know. The next Echo might be watching right now. Tyler dropped the flashlight. "Jesus, Echo, go get my phone!" But Echo didn't move. Instead, he jumped down beside the boy and laid beside him gently, like he was guarding a brother. The child couldn't have been more than 10. Sunken cheeks, skin like paper. His lips were cracked. His eyes, half open, were the color of old bruises. Tyler scooped him up. The boy didn't even flinch. Kid, can you hear me?" A whisper, faint as breath. Water." Tyler ran to the kitchen, forgetting there was no running water yet. He remembered the cooler in the truck bed, grabbed a bottle, ran back. The boy took 3 sips before passing out cold in Echo's fur. Tyler stared down at them, the broken boy and the loyal dog, and said aloud to no one, "What the hell happened in this house?" At the ER, the doctors didn't ask many questions, not yet. The boy, unnamed, weighed 62 pounds, dehydrated, starving. He had no ID, no school records, no vaccination history. Nothing. Tyler gave them his contact info. The sheriff came by, said the house had been sold in foreclosure. "Kid's probably a runaway," he added with a shrug. But Echo disagreed. That night, back at the house, Echo scratched again, this time at the attic door. Tyler opened it. Boxes, papers, and beneath a loose floorboard, a photograph. A woman, a man, a baby, standing right in front of this same house. But they weren't the people who sold it to Tyler. They weren't even close. Echo let out a low growl. Tyler looked down at the photo. His heart sank. This wasn't a new beginning. This was a buried secret. And they had only just scratched the surface. There's a silence hospitals have in the early hours, one that feels more like waiting than resting. The fluorescent lights never really sleep. Machines beep, doors hiss, and shoes squeak across waxed floors. But in room 214, the only sound was a slow, steady breath. Tyler sat in a chair too small for comfort, elbows on knees, watching the boy sleep. He still didn't have a name. "Vitals are stable," the nurse had told him. But the kid's been through hell. Tyler could tell. Even now, asleep, the boy twitched, like he was bracing for something. Every now and then, his lips moved without sound, like he was trying to speak, but couldn't find the words. And Echo, the dog, lay curled at the foot of the hospital bed, eyes open, tail flicking every few seconds. He hadn't left the kid's side once. Not for food, not for water, not even for Tyler. Back at the farmhouse, the day after the discovery, Tyler had combed every inch of the property. The attic, the closets, even the crawl space under the porch. What he'd found was confusing. An old backpack with cartoon dinosaurs, a shoebox full of crayons, half of them worn to stubs. No clothes, no schoolwork, no signs of a child having lived there. Just pieces, ghosts. He turned over the photo again, the one of the couple with the baby. On the back, scrawled in blue ink, "Our little Nico, springtime on the porch." Nico. Tyler whispered it to himself like a prayer. Echo. Maybe that's his name. Echo's ears twitched. 2 days later, a doctor finally sat Tyler down in the hallway. "Whatever happened to this kid? It's been going on a long time," she said. "He's severely malnourished. Signs of chronic neglect and possibly abuse." Tyler clenched his fists. "Can he talk yet?" "Barely. He says a few words, mostly to the dog." "To Echo?" The doctor nodded. "That dog. He's the only one the kid trusts. Won't let anyone else near him. We tried moving the dog to the waiting room, and the boy had a full-blown panic attack." Tyler cracked a tired smile. "That sounds like Echo." The doctor softened. "He doesn't have a file anywhere. Not in school records, not CPS, not even in the hospital registry under that name, Nicholas. If he was born in a hospital, there's no digital trace. I don't know how that's possible." But Tyler had a feeling, somewhere deep in his gut. That cop instinct he thought he'd left behind was stirring. That night, he called an old friend from the department. "Cameron, it's me. I need a favor. Yeah, off the books." He emailed him the photo, the deed, the forged seller names. Told him about the boy, the hidden hole in the hallway. He left out the part where Echo found him. People wouldn't get it, but Echo knew. And Tyler trusted the dog more than half the people he'd met in uniform. Back at the hospital, Tyler entered room 214 and found the boy sitting up, knees tucked to his chest. Echo was lying next to him, head resting on the boy's leg. Tyler approached slowly, hands in the air like he was walking into a standoff. "Hey kid, you hungry?" No answer. I brought you something. From a brown paper bag, Tyler pulled out a peanut butter sandwich and a juice box. He placed it gently on the tray, not too close. The boy looked up, just briefly. His eyes were green, but sunken, like he hadn't slept for years. Your name, Nico. The boy blinked. Tyler pointed to the photo, now framed and leaning on the table. That you? Finally, a whisper. Yeah. Tyler's throat caught. Well, I'm Tyler. This here's Echo. The boy reached a hand toward the dog's fur. Echo leaned in. After a pause, the boy asked, You taking me back? Tyler froze. Back where? To them. There was no fear in the boy's voice, just resignation. Tyler sat down on the windowsill. No, son, I'm not taking you anywhere you don't want to go. The boy's lips trembled. He took a shaky bite of sandwich. Echo let out a low sigh like relief. The next day, Cameron called. Ty, you're not gonna like this. Tell me. The people who sold you that house, fake IDs. They cleaned the property title through a shell corporation that vanished last year. I checked the regional DMV. No one's seen them in months. And the kid? Birth certificate, school record, even a social security number. Nothing. It's like he was erased. But the names on that photo? He paused. Ty, they died in a car accident 10 years ago. Husband and wife. Baby boy with them. Supposedly died too. Tyler's blood turned cold. You're saying he's that boy? Cameron exhaled. If he is, somebody lied. Somebody buried him, in every sense of the word. Tyler hung up without another word. He turned to Echo, who stared back with silent understanding. We're not leaving this alone, boy. Echo's tail thumped once. Tyler returned to the house that evening. There was one place he hadn't checked. The barn out back. The structure leaned a little left, roof rusted, door hanging off one hinge. Inside, the dust was thick, but not undisturbed. Echo barked once. Tyler followed him to the far stall where old hay was scattered. There, buried beneath the straw, he found it. A rusted toolbox, locked. Inside, when pried open, were birth documents, a real photo album, receipts, and a journal. The handwriting matched the note on the back of the photo. Page 1, March 2nd. We're pregnant. If it's a boy, we'll name him Nicholas after my grandfather. Page after page, the woman had documented her love for her son. Bath time. First words. Birthday parties. Then something shifted. Page 67. We hired a new maid. Soraya. Came with her husband, Pedro, and their daughter, Clara. They seemed polite. Tyler's hands trembled. Echo growled low again. Page 72. Pedro took the truck today without asking. Soraya watches me too closely. I don't trust them. The next page was torn. The one after that, blank. Then silence. By the time Tyler returned to the hospital, Echo was acting restless. He nudged the boy's hand repeatedly. Tyler dropped the journal on the table. The boy looked down, eyes wide. He pointed at a photo. That's my mama. Tyler sat beside him. She loved you, Nico. A tear rolled down the boy's cheek. He nodded, then asked, barely above a whisper, Where is she? Tyler's jaw clenched. She's gone, but she didn't leave you. The boy didn't speak for a long time. When he did, it was to Echo. He leaned down and pressed his forehead to the dog's. You found me. Echo licked his cheek once and let out a soft bark, tail wagging slow. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Storm's coming, Tyler thought. But for the first time, Nico had a name again. And Echo, the dog who wouldn't step off the porch, had finally brought someone home. Echo had always been the one to notice what others ignored. The twitch in a suspect's hand, the scent of panic on a fleeing fugitive. And now, in the quiet shadows of the old farmhouse, it was the subtle crack in a brick. Tyler wouldn't have caught it himself. He'd been too focused on cleaning out the barn, organizing files, making calls. The case around Nico was growing heavier by the day. Law enforcement red tape, social workers stalling, and lawyers suddenly involved. It was like people didn't know what to do with a boy who'd legally never existed. But Echo? Echo had been staring at the fireplace for hours. It was a cold morning, one of those fall days when the fog clung to the ground like a secret. Tyler had just finished replacing a busted window pane when he found Echo in the living room, standing rigid in front of the hearth. No barking, just stillness. Focused, alert. "What is it now?" Tyler muttered, setting down the hammer. Echo pawed once at the hearthstone, then sniffed the brick just left of the mantel. Tyler wiped dust off his hands and crouched next to him. "You're telling me we've got something under here, too?" He ran his fingers along the mortar and stopped. A hairline gap. One brick didn't match the others, lighter color, newer cement. "Well, I'll be damned." He grabbed a chisel from the truck and began tapping around the edge. Echo sat quietly behind him, head tilted. It took 15 minutes to pry the brick free. Behind it, empty space. Then a thin breeze. "Jesus!" Tyler leaned closer. "There's a draft." He widened the hole, removed another brick. The whole section, about 4 feet wide, was a false front. Behind it was a small iron latch embedded in the fireplace floor. Echo barked softly. Tyler hesitated, then tugged. There was a metallic click, and the stone floor shifted. A square trapdoor creaked open. Tyler grabbed a flashlight. Dust swirled up like breath from a corpse. He looked down into the opening. A narrow staircase, steep and dark, leading beneath the house. Echo growled low, fur raised along his spine. "Easy, boy." But Echo didn't bark. Instead, he pressed forward, tail stiff, descending the stairs without hesitation. Tyler swallowed hard and followed. The basement wasn't listed on any blueprint. It smelled like damp concrete and forgotten things. The flashlight beam landed on canvas tarps, shelves stacked with boxes, and a single table in the middle of the room. On the walls, faded markings, hooks, and what looked like bolts drilled into stone. Tyler's stomach turned, but it was the shelves that caught his attention. Wooden crates, labeled in handwritten script. One box read, "J. Dawson, Estate Ledger." Another, "Private, not to be opened." He set the light down and pulled the lid off the nearest. Inside, documents, notarized deeds, bank certificates, photos, legal files. This wasn't a storage room. It was a vault. Echo sniffed one corner and let out a soft, frustrated whimper. Tyler turned and noticed something small and delicate in the dust. A toy. A plastic fire truck, half buried in grime. He picked it up slowly. "That yours, Nico?" They drove to the hospital that evening with the toy on the passenger seat, Echo in the back. Nico was sitting up when they arrived, more alert than before. He still didn't say much, but he smiled when Echo walked in, tail wagging gently. Tyler sat on the edge of the bed and held out the fire truck. "You ever seen this before?" Nico blinked, then reached out and touched it softly. "I lost it." "Where'd you lose it, buddy?" The boy hesitated. "Downstairs." "In the basement?" Nico nodded. "You've been there?" "Once, when I was little." Tyler felt the hair rise on his neck. "Did they put you there?" Nico's expression shifted. Fear clouded his eyes. "They said it wasn't my house, that I was lucky to live there at all." Tyler clenched his fists. "You listen to me, kid. That house was yours. Still is." He paused. "And we're going to prove it." That night, Tyler read through the documents he'd found. J. Dawson, Jonathan Dawson, was the original owner, an artist and historian. His wife, Evelyn, was a museum curator. The home was filled with antiques and heirlooms, but after their deaths in the car crash, it had all been left behind. Except Tyler found something strange. The accident report was dated 2015, but the legal transfer of the house didn't happen until 2019. That's 4 years of missing history. And in one of the folders, he found a birth certificate, real, official, for Nicholas Dawson, born February 12th. Same date Nico had whispered in his sleep 2 nights ago. Tyler leaned back in the chair and exhaled. So it was true. The boy wasn't a nobody. He was the heir. And someone had taken everything from him. The next morning, a woman from CPS showed up at the hospital. Her voice was firm, cold. "We're placing Nicholas in temporary state custody until the investigation is complete. Tyler stood his ground. He's staying with me. You're not his relative. You're not licensed. We have to follow protocol. Tyler looked at Nico, who had frozen in the doorway, clutching Echo's leash. You're making a mistake, Tyler said. That may be, but it's not your call. That night, Nico slept in a group shelter 2 hours away. Echo sat by the door of the house, unmoving, refusing dinner, refusing to lie down. Tyler felt the house grow cold again. Not physically, but emotionally. Like a light had gone out. He stared at the fireplace for a long time, then opened his laptop. There was one last document he hadn't translated yet, written in Spanish. He used an online translator. It was a journal entry, hidden behind the others, written in Evelyn Dawson's handwriting. They warned me not to trust the help, but Pedro, he was too curious. Soraya watches Nicolas when I'm not home. I found her snooping in my bedroom. I think they're planning something. God help us if we're right. Tyler stared at the screen. The help. Pedro, Soraya. It all made sense now. They didn't just find the boy. They took him. The next morning, Tyler knocked on the sheriff's office door with a folder full of evidence. Birth certificate, journal, photos, timeline gaps, forged deeds, the hidden vault. You want a case? Tyler said. This is bigger than you think. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Where'd you get all this? Echo led me to it. You're telling me a dog cracked this case? I'm telling you that if you don't act, you're complicit. The sheriff didn't blink, but 20 minutes later, a judge signed a protection order. That afternoon, Echo rode shotgun. They arrived at the shelter just before lights out. Nico was sitting on a cot, staring at the wall. When he saw Echo, his face lit up. The boy stood, ran across the floor, and threw his arms around the dog. Tyler stepped in behind him. You're coming home. Nico didn't speak, but the way he gripped Echo's neck said enough. Back at the house, Tyler built a fire in the fireplace for the first time. Nico curled up in a blanket beside Echo, the fire truck in his lap. Do you think they'll come back? He asked. Not this time, Tyler replied. How do you know? Because this time you've got us, and Echo doesn't miss. Outside, the wind shifted. Inside, for the first time in a long while, the house felt like home. Some dogs barked to be heard. But Echo? Echo barked when it mattered. And when he growled that morning, deep, low, and steady, Tyler knew something was wrong. He looked up from his mug of black coffee, standing barefoot in the kitchen. The radio hummed some old country song in the background, the kind that made everything feel a little quieter than it really was. But Echo was frozen at the front door, tail stiff, ears forward, a rumble in his chest like a storm just under the surface. What is it, boy? Tyler set the mug down and followed Echo's line of sight through the window. There, parked crooked at the end of the gravel driveway, was a black SUV with tinted windows. A woman stepped out first, fake smile, sharp eyes. Then a man, bulky frame, stiff jaw, hair too perfect. And then a girl, maybe 16, with a scowl on her face and earbuds in. Tyler's jaw clenched. Pedro, Soraya, Clara. They had come back. Tyler opened the door before they could knock. He didn't smile. Can't say I'm surprised. Soraya's voice was syrupy and smug. Tyler, right? We were hoping we could speak with Nico. Echo positioned himself between them. Pedro tried to take a step forward. Echo growled louder. Back off, Tyler said. We're his family, Soraya added quickly, waving a piece of paper. We have a legal claim to guardianship. See? Tyler didn't move. Funny, last I checked, abandoning a kid in a sealed-up house doesn't exactly scream fit parent. Pedro scoffed. He was confused. Probably ran off and hid. He does that. Tyler took a slow step forward, his tone like steel. You put him in a hole under the floorboards and left him to die. No proof of that, Soraya snapped. Echo lunged forward suddenly, barking twice, sharp and close. Pedro jumped back. Tyler didn't flinch. You should leave, now. But Soraya's face changed. The mask dropped. Her voice dropped 2 octaves. "You think this is over? That money, that house, you think it's yours? We raised that boy, fed him, kept him alive. You exploited him. We owned that house. You stole it." Her lips curled into something venomous. "Lawyers don't care about feelings. They care about paper, and we've got plenty." Echo growled again. Tyler stepped forward, closing the door in their faces. "This dog's got more moral code than either of you. So go ahead. Call your lawyer. I'll call the sheriff." Inside, Nico stood at the top of the stairs, silent. He'd heard it all. "Are they gonna take me?" he asked, voice small. "No," Tyler said. "They're not. But they have papers?" Tyler walked up the steps, crouched in front of him. Sometimes bad people hide behind paper, but Echo's got a nose for the truth. Nico looked down at the dog. "He found me." Tyler nodded. "He'll protect you, so will I." 2 days later, the media got wind of it. Tyler's phone lit up with calls from local stations. Reporters drove by slowly. One left a flyer on the mailbox that read, "10-year-old ghost child found in hidden basement. Family battle begins." Tyler tore it in half. At the grocery store, people stared. Some offered support. Some whispered behind his back. But the real storm came in the form of a letter from a law firm. Pedro and Soraya had filed a motion for emergency custody, claiming Tyler had unlawfully detained a minor, and that reunification with biological family was in the child's best interest. They'd also petitioned to block access to the estate, including the contents of the basement. Tyler sat in the sheriff's office that afternoon, the letter in hand. "This is insane," and he muttered. The sheriff, an older man with a slow drawl and a poker face, leaned back in his chair. "Courts move slow, Tyler, but don't panic. You've got documentation now, proof of fraud. That journal was a game changer. And if the judge sides with them, then we appeal. Meanwhile, we keep building the case." Echo was restless that night. He paced the hallway, sat by the fireplace, then scratched again near the wall behind the bookshelf. Tyler pulled the shelf away, and behind it, another panel, not as hidden as the rest. A simple wooden box had been tucked between the studs in the wall. Inside was a stack of old Polaroids. Nico at various ages, some happy, some scared, but one photo made Tyler's blood run cold. It was a shot of the original owners, Evelyn and Jonathan Dawson, standing in the garden with baby Nico. And behind them, slightly blurred, Oliver, was a Soraya, watching, almost smirking. It was dated 3 months before the accident. The next day, Tyler showed the photo to Nico. The boy stared at it a long time. "She was mean even back then," he whispered. Tyler looked over. "You remember that day?" "Kind of. Mama said we were going to go on a trip, but that night there was a loud noise." "What kind of noise?" Nico's brows furrowed. "Like metal and yelling. I think there was fire." Tyler wrote it all down. If what Nico remembered was true, the accident might not have been one at all. He brought the photo to Cameron, his contact back at the precinct. "This is premeditated," Tyler said. "She was watching them, planning something." Cameron frowned. "You think she staged the crash?" "I think they killed that couple, took their house, and buried a child alive to erase the witnesses." Cameron nodded slowly. "I'll reopen the crash file. We'll dig into the forensics again." Tyler leaned forward. "You've got to move fast. They're trying to spin this as a custody case. If they win, they get the house, the inheritance, the silence." Cameron narrowed his eyes. "I'll get you what you need." Meanwhile, Tyler enrolled Nico in homeschool therapy, trauma-informed one-on-one sessions, using a teacher named Miss Haley, who came highly recommended. Nico took to her slowly. At first, he just sat with Echo at his feet, head down, saying nothing. But by the 3rd session, he answered a question. By the 5th, he drew a picture. By the 7th, he laughed, just once, when Echo licked his face and barked mid-lesson. Tyler watched from the kitchen with mist in his eyes. But as they found a rhythm, the pressure outside kept building. Court summons, news vans, social media buzz. People debated in comment sections like it was a game. If they raised him, maybe they deserve some rights? The guy who found him isn't even related. The dog should win custody. He's the only one that actually saved the kid. Tyler hated all of it, but he kept quiet. Because the truth doesn't shout. It waits. And when the right moment comes, it tears the lies apart. That moment came 1 week later. A manila envelope showed up on Tyler's porch. No return address. Inside an SD card. Tyler plugged it into his laptop. A single video file. He hit play. The footage was grainy, like it came from an old security camera. Timestamp, 10 years ago. It showed the farmhouse driveway. A car pulled in, the Dawson's SUV. Then another car pulled behind them. Pedro got out. Soraya, too. What followed was chaos. A struggle. A flash. The SUV lurched and rolled into the ditch out of frame. Silence. Then Soraya walked calmly back toward the house, holding a baby. Tyler paused the video. His hands were shaking. Echo sat beside him, as still as stone. And Nico, now standing behind them, whispered, "That's the night I stopped dreaming." The courthouse in Bryan County looked like something out of an old movie. Tall columns, cracked steps, and a bell that hadn't rung in years. On the morning of the custody hearing, the parking lot was already full of media vans and reporters clutching mics like spears. Tyler Briggs sat behind the wheel of his Ford, jaw tight, eyes on the front door. In the back seat, Nico was quiet, dressed in the nicest clothes Tyler could find on short notice, a navy shirt, clean jeans, and Echo's old K9 badge pinned like a secret shield under the collar. He fiddled with the edge of his sleeve. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to," Tyler said gently. "We've got everything we need." Nico glanced up. "Will Echo be with me?" Tyler nodded. "Every step." The boy gave a small nod. "Then I'm okay." Echo let out a soft bark, like he understood. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. On the left, Soraya and Pedro sat with smug faces and expensive lawyers in pressed suits. Clara was slouched in a chair, gum in her mouth, rolling her eyes like the whole thing was a boring movie. On the right, Tyler, Nico, and Echo took their seats beside a pro bono attorney named Luann, a woman with southern grit and a stare that could flatten drywall. The judge, a white-haired Vietnam vet named Judge Harlan Clay, entered with a limp and a scowl. He banged the gavel once. "Let's keep this quick. The boy's comfort comes first, not the drama." Pedro's lawyer stood up like he was walking into a press conference. "Your Honor, my clients are the rightful guardians of this child. They raised him for 10 years. They provided housing, food, protection. They abandoned him," Luann cut in. "Allegedly. We have video proof," she said coolly, sliding a flash drive across the table. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Video? Security footage recovered from a neighbor's old hard drive. It shows Pedro and Soraya confronting the Dawsons, forcing their vehicle off the road and carrying away a baby. That baby is Nico." The judge nodded slowly. "Play it." The video played in eerie silence. The grainy footage rolled across the courtroom monitor. The car, the struggle, the fall, the baby in Soraya's arms. The room was dead quiet. When the video ended, Soraya stood abruptly. "That doesn't prove intent. That doesn't prove we killed them." Judge Clay adjusted his glasses. "But it does prove you lied about how you got custody of this child. That's felony-level deception." Pedro turned red. Clara looked like she'd swallowed her gum. Luann wasn't finished. "We also recovered journal entries from Evelyn Dawson. She expressed concerns about the help she'd recently hired, Soraya and Pedro, noting strange behavior and unauthorized access to personal belongings." The opposing lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor, if I may—" "You may not," Clay snapped. "You're not just trying to keep this boy. You're trying to secure an inheritance." "That house is ours," Pedro barked. "We lived in it for years." "You lived in it because you killed the people who owned it," Tyler said, standing now, voice calm and dangerous. And you would have let a 10-year-old starve to death just to keep the secret buried. The judge leaned back, arms crossed. "Where's the boy now?" he asked. Luann nodded towards the back of the room. A bailiff opened the side door, and in came Nico, holding Echo's leash. Gasps fluttered through the gallery. The boy walked slowly, but with purpose, like every step mattered. Echo padded beside him, tail low but wagging, as if he too understood what this moment meant. Nico reached the witness stand and sat quietly. Echo curled at his feet. The judge gave a small smile. "You okay, son?" Nico nodded. "You don't have to say anything, but if you want to, you can." The boy looked down, then up, then whispered, "They left me in the floor." The words were soft, but the courtroom froze. "They said I wasn't theirs, that I was just left over. They locked the door. I called and called, but nobody came, not until Echo." Tyler blinked fast, forcing the lump in his throat back down. Judge Clay nodded, visibly moved. "Thank you, son. That's enough." He turned to the bailiff. "Take the defendants into custody. We'll hold them on multiple charges until the DA decides how deep this goes." Soraya screamed, "You can't do this! That kid was nothing before us!" Clara stood too, voice sharp. "You can't take everything." Judge Clay slammed the gavel again. "You didn't raise a child. You kept a prisoner. And justice is knocking." Outside, the media swarmed. Tyler put an arm around Nico's shoulder as they stepped onto the courthouse steps. "Is it really over?" Nico asked quietly. "Almost," Tyler said. "They still have to go to trial, but the court's on your side now, and Echo's not going anywhere." Nico smiled for the first time in days. One reporter shoved a mic in Tyler's face. "How did you crack this case?" Tyler glanced down at Echo, then back at the cameras. "I didn't." He knelt and scratched Echo's ear. "He did." In the weeks that followed, Soraya and Pedro were formally charged with fraud, falsification of legal documents, obstruction of justice, and second-degree murder. Clara, tried as an adult, faced charges of accessory after the fact and criminal neglect. The Dawsons' will was finally validated, thanks to Evelyn's hidden journal and Cameron's work at the precinct. The house, and the wealth hidden in its basement, was legally transferred to Nico's trust. And Echo? Echo became a hero. The local news ran a segment titled, "The Dog That Saved a Forgotten Boy." A GoFundMe launched to cover Tyler's legal fees, but he declined the donations. "Give it to animal rescue," he said. "Echo's not the only one out there with a gift." One evening, a month after the trial, Tyler stood on the porch with a beer in hand, watching Nico and Echo chase fireflies in the yard. The house no longer creaked like it was haunted. The wallpaper was gone, the paint fresh, the garden replanted. Nico had made a list on the fridge titled, "Things to do now that I'm free." It read, "Sleep in a real bed, eat pancakes, go to school, teach Echo tricks, get a real last name." Tyler had circled the last one. That morning, they'd filed the papers. Nico would now be Nico Briggs. Later that night, Nico sat on the porch step, a blanket around his shoulders, and looked up at Tyler. "Do you think my mom and dad would be proud?" Tyler sat beside him. "I think they already are." Echo lay across their feet, breathing slow and steady. The stars blinked overhead, bright and constant. "Can I keep the fire truck?" Nico asked. "Forever," Tyler said. "That's your story now." "And Echo, he's your dog." Nico smiled again. "No, I'm his boy." Tyler looked at the old farmhouse that had once hidden so many secrets. Now it held something else, a future. 3 years later, the old farmhouse didn't look old anymore. Fresh paint, new shutters, a flagpole in the yard. The oak tree out front had a tire swing tied to it, and the grass was always mowed in neat rows. Kids rode their bikes past on weekends. Birds nested in the gutters again. Inside, the house was filled with noise. The good kind. Laughter, music. Homework questions shouted across rooms. The kind of noise you only hear in homes that know peace. And in the middle of it all, Nico Briggs, 14 now, taller, stronger, a scar above his eyebrow from a skateboarding fall. a straight-A student who made the honor roll and still made time to walk the dog twice a day. Echo had slowed down a bit. His muzzle was grayer, his back legs a little stiffer. But the fire in his eyes hadn't gone out. Every morning, Echo waited at the school bus stop with Nico. Every afternoon, he was there when the doors opened. And every night, he slept at the foot of the same bed. Because home wasn't just a house anymore. It was a bond. That spring, the town of Briar County held its first Hero Awards Gala, a charity event to honor local heroes. Most years, it was low-key. A teacher, a firefighter, maybe a nurse or two. But this year, the guest of honor wore a vest with the words, K9 Hero Echo Briggs. The crowd stood and clapped as the now-retired German Shepherd walked across the small stage, escorted by Nico and Tyler. A woman in pearls handed Echo a bone-shaped medal engraved with, "For bravery beyond instinct, for loyalty beyond words." The mayor gave a short speech, but it was Nico who stole the room. Standing at the podium in a navy suit and Echo's old K9 badge pinned to his lapel, he cleared his throat. "I used to think heroes had to be big and loud, wear uniforms or capes. But the one who saved me? He never said a word. He just kept showing up. Every time I was scared, every time I thought I'd disappear, he was there. Echo didn't rescue me once. He rescued me every day." People wept. Tyler wept. And Echo, sensing the moment, barked once, sharp, proud. After the ceremony, a woman approached them backstage. She was mid-40s, wearing a worn sweater, clutching a folder. "Mr. Briggs?" she asked. "That's me," Tyler said, extending a hand. She introduced herself as Melissa Greer, director of a nonprofit for abandoned children and former foster youth. "I've followed your story since the trial," she said. "What you and Echo did. It gave a lot of people hope." She looked down at Nico. "Especially kids who think no one's coming for them." Nico shifted, unsure what to say, but then she added something unexpected. "We're opening a new shelter next spring. Not a state facility, a real home. With animals, teachers, therapists. And we were wondering, would Echo be willing to be our mascot?" Tyler looked at Nico, and Nico smiled. Echo would love that. Months later, Echo had his own plaque above the front entrance of the Briggs house, a warm, red brick home for kids with nowhere else to go. Nico volunteered there every weekend. He read stories, he taught math, he played basketball with kids who still hadn't learned how to trust. And sometimes, when things got too hard or too quiet, he brought Echo into the room. The kids didn't talk much at first, but they always reached out. Echo never judged them, never rushed them, just like he never rushed Nico. One cold November morning, Tyler found Nico on the back porch, staring into the woods with Echo asleep beside him. "You okay, buddy?" Tyler asked, sipping coffee. Nico nodded, just thinking. "About what?" The boy scratched Echo's ears. "About how it all started. About how I used to be afraid of everything. Of sleeping, of eating too much, of saying the wrong thing." Tyler sat down beside him. "You're not that kid anymore." Nico turned. "You think my real parents would be proud?" Tyler put a hand on his shoulder. "I think they already are. I think they've been watching you every day, and smiling." The sun began to rise over the treetops. Echo stirred, looked up, then rested his head back down with a satisfied sigh. The years passed and life rolled on. Nico graduated high school a year early. He gave a speech at commencement about resilience and the power of second chances. He applied to college with a letter of recommendation from the sheriff himself. He got in, pre-med, because Nico Briggs didn't just want to survive anymore. He wanted to help. He wanted to be the person he once needed. And Echo? Echo got slower, sleepier. But he always wagged his tail when Nico walked in the room. One summer night, as the fireflies lit up the backyard, Echo lay on the grass with Nico's hand on his chest. Tyler came out with 2 glasses of lemonade. Nico whispered, "He's tired." Tyler nodded. "He's earned his rest." They sat in silence a while. When Echo finally closed his eyes, he did it with peace in his heart and love in his bones. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you've fulfilled your purpose. That fall, Nico started school in the city. He kept Echo's canine badge on a chain around his neck. Every patient he treated, every child he comforted, every diagnosis he studied for, every night shift he took, it was for Echo. And for every kid who thought no one was coming. Thank you for following Nico and Echo's story. A journey of trauma, truth, healing, and hope. We hope it reminded you that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Some walk on 2 legs, others run on 4 paws. Now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever known a dog that changed someone's life? Drop your story in the comments. Let's fill this space with stories of silent heroes and second chances. And if this journey moved you, share it with someone who needs to believe in goodness again. Until next time, from all of us at Heroes for Animals, thank you for watching.